Have you ever found yourself just looking up at the stars or maybe deep into your own thoughts and asking one of those really big questions? Like, what is all this stuff around me actually made of? Or maybe more importantly, how am I supposed to live my life? It's just what we do as humans, right? But there was a specific time and a place where asking those questions and trying to answer them with reason instead of just old stories sparked a revolution that literally changed the world forever. So these two questions right here were basically the starting pistol for a 2,000-year intellectual relay race. For centuries, our answers to the big stuff came from myths and divine stories. But around the 6th century BC in ancient Greece, a handful of thinkers decided to look for a different kind of answer, one based not on gods, but on what they could see, on logic and on rational argument. And folks, this was the dawn of philosophy. This is a huge shift in thinking. Before this, if you asked where people came from, a story like Genesis gave you the whole package. God is the maker, clay is the material, and our purpose is handed down from on high. It's a complete, powerful narrative. But then, a thinker named Thales comes along and suggests something totally radical. Maybe the world doesn't come from a god, but from a single natural substance. And the best part, we can actually figure it out. That one idea, it changed everything. All right, so let's meet the first runners in this big relay race. We call them the Pre-Socratics, not because they were less important or anything, but simply because they came before the guy who would change the game forever, Socrates. Their gaze, it was fixed firmly outwards, on the cosmos itself. So, first up, we've got Thales. The story goes that he was so busy staring up at the stars, trying to wrap his head around the universe, that he fell right into a well. A servant girl apparently mocked him, saying he was obsessed with the heavens but couldn't even see what was right in front of him. But you know what? That obsession is exactly what made him a philosopher. So Thales' big idea was this. Everything, rocks, clouds, people, you name it, was all ultimately made of one single thing. He called it the arche. And his best guess for what it was? Water. Now look, he was totally wrong about the water part, but that's not the point. He was revolutionary for even suggesting that the entire universe could be explained by a single natural principle. It was the very first step away from myth and toward what we now call science. And that idea of a single substance, it quickly led to the first great philosophical showdown. On one side, you've got Heraclitus. He argued that reality is nothing but constant change, constant flux. His famous line, "You cannot step into the same river twice," means that the universe is never the same from one moment to the next. But then, on the other side, you have Parmenides, who argued with pure cold logic that change is just an illusion. For him, if something is, it can't not be. Reality must be one, single, eternal, and totally unchanging thing. So, how do you solve a problem like that? Well, enter Empedocles, a true character. He tried to bring these two ideas together. He said, sure, things are made of 4 permanent roots, earth, air, fire, and water. But they're constantly being mixed together by a force he called love, and then pulled apart by another force called strife. And this cosmic tug-of-war creates the changing world we see. And get this, he even came up with an early version of evolution, where random body parts combined, and only the most useful ones survived. To top it all off, legend says he tried to prove he was a god by leaping into the volcano Mount Etna. What a guy. So, after all these guys staring up at the stars, the philosophical baton was passed to a man who, frankly, couldn't have cared less about what the stars were made of. He was way more interested in what we were made of. His name was Socrates, and he turned philosophy's focus completely inward, from the cosmos to the human soul. Socrates was not what you'd picture when you think wise old philosopher. He was famously unattractive, he wandered around Athens barefoot, and his whole deal was cornering the most respected people in the city, generals, politicians, poets, and asking them really simple-sounding questions like, what is justice? Until they were forced to admit they had no clue. He never wrote a single word down. Everything we know about him comes from his students. And this was his genius, the Socratic method. It wasn't about him having all the answers. Nope. It was about showing other people that their own confident beliefs were actually full of holes. The goal was to reach that famous state of, I know that I know nothing. Because only then, once you've cleared away all the false certainty, can you begin the real search for wisdom. And the person who took that search to a whole new level was Socrates' greatest student, Plato. After Socrates was executed by the state of Athens, Plato took his teacher's incredible ideas and built them into one of the most complete and influential philosophical systems ever created. At the very heart of Plato's philosophy is his theory of forms. Plato argued that the physical world we see, touch, and hear isn't the real world. It's just a fleeting, imperfect shadow of a higher reality. This true reality is a realm of perfect, eternal, and unchanging concepts. The perfect form of justice, the perfect form of beauty, the perfect form of a circle. Everything in our world is just a flawed copy of these perfect forms. Now, this wasn't just some abstract daydreaming. Plato applied this idea directly to politics in his masterpiece, The Republic. He asked, who should rule a city? Not the rich, not the powerful. The ones who should rule are the philosophers. Why? Because only they have struggled to escape the shadowy cave of our world and get a glimpse of the true forms of justice and goodness. His ideal state was a radical attempt to build an entire society based purely on reason. But Plato's own star pupil would take that philosophical baton and run in a completely opposite direction. If Plato's whole philosophy was about escaping this world for a higher one, his student, Aristotle, was all about understanding this world, right here and right now, in all its messy, beautiful detail. You can actually see this perfectly in Raphael's famous painting, The School of Athens. You've got Plato, the teacher, pointing upward, toward that higher realm of the forms. But Aristotle, his student, gestures down toward the earth. It's like he's saying, hold on, everything we need to know is right here in front of us. For him, reality wasn't in some other world. It was right here, just waiting to be observed, cataloged, and understood. And boy, did he understand it. I mean, the sheer scope of Aristotle's work is just staggering. He was less of a prophet and more of a great systematizer. He practically invented the formal study of logic. He spent countless hours dissecting animals, documenting their biology. He laid the foundations for ethics, politics, literary theory. The list just goes on and on. He wanted to create a framework for all of human knowledge. He also gave us these incredible tools to think with. A perfect example is his concept of the four causes. To truly understand anything, let's say a statue, you have to ask four questions. What's it made of? That's the material cause, bronze. What is its shape or structure? That's the formal cause, the blueprint. Who or what made it? The efficient cause, the sculptor. And finally, what is its purpose? The final cause, to be admired. It's a simple but incredibly powerful framework for analysis. And so our relay race comes full circle, doesn't it? It all started with Thales asking about the physical stuff of the world. Then Socrates turned that focus inward to how we should live our lives. Plato took that and built a bridge to a higher, perfect reality. And finally, Aristotle brought it all right back down to earth, creating the tools to systematically study the very world his predecessors had only wondered at. So what's the big takeaway here? Ultimately, it's this. Their true legacy isn't the answers they gave us. I mean, we don't think water is the fundamental substance or that there's a world of perfect forms. That's not the point. Their great gift was showing us a new way to approach the world, with curiosity, with critical reason, and with the courage to question everything. They literally gave us the tools of thought. And that brings us to today, right now. 2.5 millennia later, after all our incredible scientific progress and technological change, we are still wrestling with the very same questions they first dared to ask. Is there an ultimate reality behind what we see? And how, in the face of it all, should we live? Which of those questions still echoes for you?